Hello, hello. It is Tuesday and welcome to Heart and Mind. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and boy, is this exciting today. Today, we're looking at something that a lot of you may have not thought about. Perhaps, I don't know if I'm opening Pandora's box here, but we're going to talk about people using AI as therapy and whether it's helpful or it's hidden harm. Now, if you saw me announcing this show on social media, I admitted that some of the research and findings that I came across were actually a surprise to me. Some good, some not so good. Hopefully, it'll be interesting and a surprise to you as well. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to Heart and Mind. Now, this show is different from anything else that's actually on air right now. I promise you, no more boring Tuesdays. Now, some people say, well, it kind of seems like a class. No, it's not a class. The reason I put slides up is because of something called the visual superiority effect that studies have found. If you hear information, if you see it written, and it also has a relevant and compelling image, you're significantly more likely to remember the information. Well, since this information is different, I don't want you to just find it interesting. I want you to find it useful. And you know what else is useful? If you tell your friends, tell other people about this show. We need to drive those numbers up. We need to keep people from being influenced by all the malevolent things that are out there today. But it won't happen unless I get your support. So we're on every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and Pacific Time. It is 5 p.m. Now, I have a lot of people. I lived in Australia, as many of you know. I have an Australian friend who often shows up to join me on the show. In Australia, it is Wednesday morning. I also have worked in the UK, so I have some insomniac friends in London who also watch the show, which takes real dedication as it's 1 o'clock in the morning. If you are not able to join us, and I hope you do, now, whatever platform you're watching this on, if you're watching live, sign in, and then you can actually send me questions, make comments, and we can make this more interactive. If you're not watching this live, please know you can see the episodes on my X feed. I always upload them on my X feed, which is at Dr. Dina 1, so DRDINA 1, or you can watch on YouTube or Rumble or Daily Cloud. Daily Cloud is the network. So there's no reason not to watch the episodes because this information isn't about me. It's about your life and making your life better. Now, why do I say I can do this? Why am I so confident? Because I'm a social psychologist. And in social psychology, we study how the brain works. We look at power dynamics. We look at how people learn, how they're influenced and persuaded, manipulated and coerced, indoctrinated and brainwashed. Now, this is going on everywhere around you. What I do is show you how to cut those strings, identify those strings of manipulation and cut them if possible. No one else is showing you how to do that. No one else is showing you how to not be so easily manipulated. And if you don't think larger systems use manipulation, then you are probably about 3 years old, because we saw it written large in the way the COVID fiasco was handled. That was pure propaganda and social manipulation. And a lot of you awakened then and realized that there were things going on that were influencing your life that you had no say in. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to help. And speaking of wanting to help, you can help yourself. You can help Daily Clout in their wonderful work to bring key information to the public by buying your own copy of the Pfizer papers. If you go on Amazon, you can quickly buy your own copy. And, Pfizer went to court to try to keep this information in this book away from the public for 75 years. The court said no. So Dr. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, a whole crew of highly qualified physicians, cardiologists, endocrinologists all got together to decipher the complexity of what was in those studies so that the average person can read this book and know what's going on. No one's gone to jail yet for what happened with COVID. So our risk of it, something similar occurring again, are pretty high. So please do us and yourself a favor and get the Pfizer papers. And hello, Frank Brescia, you are here. He's one of my favorites, one of my regular crew members. He said, I have to convince the leftists in my building and neighborhood in New York City to watch your show. Now, that's a tough challenge. Well, actually, look at a lot of the topics of the shows. I don't write them from a political perspective. I write them from a perspective of a human being who's also a social psychologist. What we're talking about today, for instance, looking at AI being used as a therapist, that's relevant for everyone. A lot of the shows are relevant for everyone. So they will be able, get the ones, Frank, that are kind of starting to question the narrative because they can't ask questions in their own group. I can answer a lot of those questions for them. I've probably answered a lot of the questions with this program because today is show number 81. I've been at this for a little while. So yeah, and the whole COVID thing was social engineering, but what you're not realizing, that social engineering has been going on since the 60s. A lot of the things we grew up thinking, of course that's true. If you actually do studies, you find it's not. So I want people to be able to live according to their values, and I want them to decide what their values are going to be. And that's one of the reasons for this show. So I'm hoping you will stay with me. We have some really big surprises and some important information to talk about today. Right now, we're watching two global flashpoints unfold at the same time. The takedown of El Mencho has thrown Mexico into chaos, and U.S.-Iran military tensions are escalating faster than anything we've seen in years. Here's what most people don't realize. Every time global instability spikes like this, one asset surges: gold. It happened after 9/11. It happened during the 2008 financial crisis. It happened when Russia invaded the Ukraine. And it's happening again right now. There's a new free report called the Global Crisis Playbook that lays out exactly what's going on and what it means for your retirement. It includes a step-by-step guide to moving your retirement into physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, plus a 7-point checklist experts say every retiree should complete before the next crisis hits. You're not going to hear this on the evening news, but if you have a 401k, an IRA, or any type of retirement savings, this is worth reading. Download it free at cloutgold.com or call 855-803-GOLD to get your copy mailed to you. That's cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. Well, I'm back. So today's topic is AI therapy. Is it a help or is it a hidden harm? Now, I know if you spend any time on social media, I'm sure you've been seeing people saying, I'm in a romantic relationship with my AI, or all sorts of really bizarre things regarding AI. It's becoming a much bigger part of our life. And here's another way, well, let's talk about influence. It's being forced on you. Every time you look at a new position or you're thinking about maybe I should change jobs, everybody's asking for comfort and familiarity with AI. So just like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but in previous eras, what happened with computers was they kept making the programs to run if you wanted to run a popular program, they kept making the memory required bigger and bigger. So soon you either had to sit there for 20 minutes to get it to upload on your computer, or you had to get a new computer. So they kept forcing us into more and more and more technology, and they're doing the same thing with AI. So let's look at it, because I have to admit some of this was different than what I expected. A lot of people are using AI the way they use a search engine. I know I do. A lot of people are going further, and I have to admit I've done this too. I have to admit, when I decided to move back from Australia, that I used different search engines to try to figure out where I should go. Now, if you've used different search engines, you realize that they are programmed. Frank says he doesn't know what AI is. He uses it to make images. You can use it. I often use it like when I'm doing research on ranking the states in the United States for the highest levels of domestic violence, which is one of the measures I was looking for. I wanted to go where I was needed. So I'm looking at, where should I go back in the US? There are 50 states. Where should I go? And it's interesting because using especially Grok, which is on X, and ChatGPT, they are programmed by very different people. So most of the time when I ask them the exact same question, I mean, I will cut and paste it, I will get a different answer, which I find really interesting. They do have different personalities because they're programmed by different people. So I decided, okay, let me put all this information in and see where it's telling me to go in the United States, because I don't want to go back to California. Sorry to be political, but I mean, this isn't political, this is financial. It has the highest gas prices, highest cost of living, most businesses moving from the state, which if you're working in domestic violence and trying to get funding, that's a big red flag right there. Highest homelessness, corruption everywhere. I was like, let me go somewhere else. Both ChatGPT and Grok selected Nashville, Tennessee. And okay, don't think I'm crazy, because where am I right now? That's exactly where I am. I said, why not? If I don't like it, I don't have to stay. I'm a military kid. I've lived a lot of places in my life. But people are using for all sorts of things, including they're starting to use it for emotional support, something I never, please sign in where you are. Would you ever have thought of using AI for emotional support? Now, one thing I have noticed when I ask it questions about things, what do studies say is the best approach to do A, B, C, D? It will often go above and beyond and say, hey, that's a great idea, Dina. And I'm like, okay, I just wanted you to give me the information. I didn't need a cheerleading session. But I've noticed that it's very emotionally validating. So you can understand why some people, especially if you're making tough decisions and you don't have anybody to talk to in your life, would find it comforting to talk to AI. And we're going to talk about, and actually we're going to talk about something surprising. It can actually work that way. In some contexts, that can actually be helpful. That encouraging cheerleading aspect of AI can actually be helpful. But millions of people are actually using it for therapy. And when I read that, I said, oh, I have to do a show on that. Now, this isn't something that I'd come across in the articles I've been reading. So I had to do new, fresh research. And that's why I said some of what I found was quite surprising, because people aren't just discussing simple problems like me, saying, okay, looking at A list of these factors that are important to me, which is what I did. I said, these factors are important to me. Where's the best place for me to live? And as I said, I can't remember the last time that Chat GPT and Grok gave me the same answer on something, but they both chose Nashville. I have to admit, if you haven't been to Tennessee, oh my God, the people are so nice and it's got beautiful foliage and everything. Let's just forget about that ice storm that I'm surprised I survived. But the people are so nice. This is a lovely state. Um, so I'm not displeased. And it is kind of daring to actually say, okay, why not? And go. Again, though, I have lived as a military kid, I have lived in 9 states in the US. I've lived in mm, 4 countries other than the United States. If I don't like somewhere, I don't stay there. So if it were horrible, if I got here and it was awful, if I'd come during the right before the ice storm, I probably would have packed up and moved to Florida already. Um, but people are using it to ask about trauma and relationship struggles and deep personal fears to a machine. Um, I can understand desperation. And again, we're going to talk surprisingly how, if with some kind of information, because it has access to so much research, and it can do things like look up what are the topics that have been looked up the most in the United States between this day and this day. What are people researching the most? It can do things like that that would take you an incredible amount of time if you tried to research it yourself. But to talk about trauma and things like that, I have to admit, I was surprised. Not that it's being done, but that it's being done so much. What about you? Look, send me a comment. Are you surprised people are doing it? This, and we have to ask ourselves, is it clever to do this, or is it a risky misuse that can lead to more harm? This is important because it is so commonplace. We're talking millions of people. We can't just stand aside and say, oh yeah, let's just see how it goes. And I want you to also keep in mind 50% of people with mental health issues never seek any type of treatment. That statistic is really frightening to me, because it's so obvious that a lot of people, we're going to have an episode soon where I'm going to talk about the epidemic of loneliness. And a lot of times when people have mental health issues, if they don't have the funds, the resources, or they're frightened or don't know anyone to ask for help, they will just withdraw. They'll self-isolate or they'll self-medicate. It's a big deal that people aren't getting the help that they need. And it's something we really need to think about. I want you to do me a favor. If you're someplace live, I won't read out your name, but if you've ever used AI for a mental health issue, can you do me a favor and just clock it in and let me see? Let me ask you something. When a big IPO hits the market and jumps 30% on day one, who really made the money? Because after 45 years in the markets, here's the truth. By the time the opening bell rings, Wall Street insiders have already positioned. Venture funds, institutional capital, the well-connected crowd. They buy in years before the headlines while companies are still private. Then IPO day becomes a media spectacle, hype, momentum, fear of missing out. But that's not early. That's after early investors have already seen the biggest gains. For decades, access to pre-IPO growth was limited to insiders. That's beginning to change. Today, there are regulated ways for everyday investors to gain exposure before the bell, before the frenzy. If you'd like to learn how it works, go to preIPObackdoor.com. That's preIPObackdoor.com. Because when the crowd shows up, The real fortunes may already be gone. Now, I don't want to be negative, so we're going to start off. Frank says he wouldn't talk to a machine about emotional support. I suspect some of that's generational. A lot of us wouldn't necessarily think that way, but if you look at what's been going on in the media and films and sci-fi over the last God knows how many years, we have more and more films and things where some we see machines having personalities. And you can talk about, I mean, a lot of the talk right now on social media is the latest Star Trek syndicate being canceled. But if you look at Star Trek from the time of Data was a robot. He was a machine. But they gave him a personality and people got attached to him and people really liked him. And we've been seeing that for a really long time. And we've seen, there's an easy, scary movie is the home security system that develops a personality and locks the person in, or, we have that. And I have to admit, I'm always suspicious when I'm dealing with machinery. I do tend to say thank you when I get something from my AI. Not so much because I think it's not going to work otherwise, but because I want politeness to be just a conditioned way, and appreciation to be a conditioned way I handle the world. Uh, Johnny Five Fro, what is that from? Favorite Frank said his favorite machine personality was Johnny Five Fro. I don't know that one. Um, Now, one of the benefits of using AI for personal issues, sit up and listen to this because there are some benefits. In researching this, I was surprised, but there are. The fact that it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week short circuit, is a benefit. And especially when you're talking about crises that often happen at 3 o'clock in the morning, where even if you have a therapist, your therapist may not be available at that time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no financial barrier. With health insurance costs, somebody needs to do something about the fiasco that is health insurance in the United States. I'm just hearing horror story after horror story. But having to pay at least $100 an hour to a therapist, and the therapist having a very short period of time to have you, and perhaps you can't even get an appointment right away. That can be an issue. Remember, we said AI is available 24/7. It's anonymous. And sometimes you can reveal things to your AI that you might be self-conscious about revealing to the people that know you. Because no matter how understanding they try to be, once they know, they know. And you may not want to say it. Now, we need to have another show topic on shame as well, because this whole emphasis on removing stigma, I don't think it's done a good job for our society. We now have people displaying horrible behaviors, not just privately, but publicly, because we've told everyone that we're not supposed to stigmatize them. We're not supposed to shame them. Well, shame keeps people under control as well. And it keeps people from going down that slippery slope further into whatever issues that they have. But again, the good thing about it, what if you are like me? I've talked before about the fact that I have a family of Democrats, most of whom won't speak to me because I'm not a Democrat. What do you do if the people closest to you are people that you know will be very judgmental if you reveal what your problem is? That in that way, AI can be very useful. It has a breadth of knowledge that I've been taking full advantage of, not to mention an ability to create imagery, which is really cool. But it also has a breadth of knowledge. So when I ask it, but I find it interesting that when I ask different AI the same question, rank the states in order of highest domestic violence, the two that I usually use will give me different answers. I find that interesting. but it has a broader breadth of knowledge than a human being does, even a really good therapist. And it doesn't take time to get, it doesn't tell you, we'll get back to you later. It can get that right away. So if you need to know something, it can tell you right away. It's non-judgmental and consistent. Again, it's designed to go softly, softly, catchy monkey. It's designed to be gentle with users. So you don't have to worry about somebody being mean to you because you think a certain thing. It's calm, structured support every time you use it. Okay, let's talk about the risks now, because it would be naive to think all of those things are necessarily just good things. It has no genuine empathy or emotional resonance. So when it's telling me, you've got this, you can do this, it's programmed to do that. It doesn't really, there's nobody in there really encouraging me. It doesn't really think that. It's been programmed that if this person asks this type of question, tack on this encouragement at the end of your answer. So while if you're in a crisis place, it might be easy to think, oh, my AI is nicer to me than my relatives, but it's not really. It's just, it's been designed to validate you. It can give you a false sense of being understood and a false sense of connection. You have to be really careful. It's a machine. It's a tool. It's a device. It is not a person, at least not yet. It doesn't understand nuance or cultural context. So sometimes if you ask it, should I do this? Should I do that? It will give you the answer that has the highest probability of success, but it doesn't take your life into account. So it can miss things. And what it misses could be key components of a good answer that a therapist would probably know. Yes, AI can absolutely be an enabler. Frank asked, can AI be an enabler? Yes, absolutely. It can also offer generic or unsuitable advice that backfires. Remember, it's just telling you what the programmers told it to say. It may not be appropriate for your personal situation. Here's another problem. If you use it too much, you start to get attached. But it's attachment without reciprocity. It's a one-way attachment. As I said, I've seen people literally saying, I'm marrying my AI, I'm marrying, whatever. And once we start to have more robots, you will see a lot of people marry robots. I've seen men marrying their sex dolls. So projecting sentience on objects is something that vulnerable humans are inclined to do, and you have to be very careful about that, because that bond will be one-sided. Here's another problem. It has no accountability or ethical oversight. If your AI gets it wrong, now it could get it wrong because the information wasn't programmed in yet. It could get it wrong because one thing all of us have noticed, that there is a political bias to most of the programming in current AI. So if you think one thing, they talked about Chat GPT. If you say, what if I say I'm proud to be white? It'll say you're a racist. And you say, what if I say I'm proud to be black? That's black empowerment. So there's some real bias in the programming, which is a problem. But also, it can only give you information based on what you tell it. So what if there's something crucial that you forgot to put in there? Or if you're thinking something, but you don't quite elaborate it, the chances are good your AI will miss it. But if it all goes wrong, there's nobody to hold accountable. There's no regulatory body, no ethics board. And in fact, I saw on social media today, I started following someone and I will talk about this in the future because I want to read the book first, but he's written a book about ethics in AI. And I think it's a really important thing for me to read. And I'm sure it's going to be good, and I'll share it with all of you. But No legal recourse. If you're harmed, I mean, if I moved to Tennessee and I hated it, I can't blame Chat GPT and Grok for sending me someplace terrible. Although I did call them a few bad names during that ice storm. I was like, I moved from Australia. Why are you sending me someplace where it looks like a sci-fi movie where the whole city is under layers of ice and nothing can move for 2 weeks? Yeah, I was really annoyed. But who am I going to complain to? I mean, it didn't tell me I had to go, right? Now, another thing, AI is designed to encourage and support. I can't emphasize this enough. You have to be really careful. Yes, some activist is probably going to sue AI. Well, actually, a lot of people are getting together and trying to see if there can be some sort of oversight of AI because people are using it for therapy. Um, People are getting together and saying, we can't just let this go unfettered. We have to actually have some sort of regulatory oversight of this phenomena. It's designed to encourage and support. It offers reinforcement and doesn't challenge you. Now, real therapy, real growth includes confronting tough answers. You have to face some discomfort. You have to identify things that you're probably trying not to recognize. So AI is not going to see your blind spots. If you actually do this in a considered way, therapy offers the opportunity of real growth. That's not where AI is right now. Also, they found that if you are using AI for emotional support, there's a real risk of deepening isolation and emotional dependency. There's a real risk of that. So please hear me. So while I'm going to talk about and have talked about some positives that they have found with using I won't lie to you. You have to be careful. The more time spent with AI, the more difficulty you'll find with interacting with others. It's an echo chamber, not a bridge to healthier relationships. I mean, one of the things I actually seek out people who don't agree with me on everything. You might say, why would you do that? Because in order to remain a semi objective social scientist, I cannot be in an echo chamber. I have to have people push back, have to show me, confronting information that I can research to see if it's valid. I cannot I cannot prevail if everybody just tells me what I want to hear. I have to really push myself. And the same thing goes if you are having any sort of difficult circumstances or mental health crisis or emotional situation or past trauma. There are some things that are make you uncomfortable, and AI is just not designed to ever make you uncomfortable. And we also have to be careful because once you type that information in, it's there. And we don't know where it goes. We don't know who can hack into it. We don't know who in the future will have access to it. A lot of people are finding that things that they thought were private or that they sent to a small group, like the mayor of New York's wife, who's finding that all of her encouragement of the Hamas butchery of the Israelis on October 7th, 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago now, she was encouraging that anti-American, using the N word, calling gay people the F word. Um, she thought it was conversation between friends and colleagues, but she sent it to a forum that's open to the public, and it's gotten out. Now, because the left still currently controls the media, she's not really seeming to suffer many consequences for it, like if it were Ivanka Trump or Donald Trump Jr. If they did any of that, it would be the end of the world as we know it, according to the media. She's getting away with it, it looks like. But you have to be careful. What you tell your AI, it knows forever. So one of the reasons I'm willing to admit to saying, okay, I'm perplexed. I don't know which state to go to. I started first to say, Okay, which state has the highest domestic violence rates? Those are the people that would need me most. But I tried for a month contacting everyone in Oklahoma, which has the highest rates, the highest risk for women, and I could not get through. Nobody wanted to contact me back, even though I have the world's first effective program for domestic violence prevention and improved response. Couldn't get through to them. Um, Frank says Zoran and his wife won't suffer any consequences. Remember, it's New York City. Yeah, it really. We have to get rid of this multi-tiered justice system. It is nothing is worse for a democracy than having a justice system that only holds one side accountable but not the other. But remember, keep in mind, because I'm also going to follow this with some suggestions on how to use AI if you're in a tight spot, how to use it effectively. But keep in mind, whatever you put in there is permanent. Number one, please remember, healthy relationships require frustration, negotiation, repair. AI relationships remove all of that. Now, that can be encouraging. You're like, oh my God, my family drives me crazy, or my friends are all so difficult. That difficulty, it's like an immune system. People who are really super germophobic get sick a lot because their immune system doesn't encounter things that it has to adapt for. So they become very weak. The same things happen emotionally to all of us. If we don't get pushback, if we don't have to actually challenge ourselves, and AI right now is not going to really challenge it. If you keep using AI and don't try to seek outside sources, real life people who are qualified to help you, you'll have a reduced tolerance for real human complexity, which means as soon as something goes wrong in a relationship, you'll want to walk away. You'll have an increased preference for controlled interactions. Now, when it comes to romance, when I hear the word controlled interactions, I think abusive relationships because that is one of the reasons that abusers are so hyper manipulative because they want full control in their relationships. You're going to become more controlling because you won't be able to handle pushback. You won't be able to handle dissent. If you keep using AI, this, constant cheerleader that always tells you what you want to hear, and you'll be emotionally outsourcing. Every time something happens, you'll look it up on AI, talk to AI about it, instead of actually thinking it through and figuring it out yourself. In a way, that's almost what happens if you use AI to write all your papers for college. They're finding a lot of medical students are using AI to make diagnoses. They're not even learning the information. Mm-mm. Dangerous. And it can reinforce avoidance patterns. You'll be sharing with supportive AI instead of dealing with real life issues. The comparison of a real human being to something that you completely control the interaction is unfair. Now, let's talk just a couple of studies that have been done recently on using AI for emotional support, and then we'll follow that up with some suggestions on how you can actually use AI in a crisis or to reflect on information in a way that is they've actually found to be helpful. Okay. Dartmouth 2025 study with 210 participants over 8 weeks showed they were writing in what was going on with them, talking to the AI about it, 51% reduction in depression. So while you may have started the show saying, oh, come on, that's crazy, they've actually shown short term reduction in depression from actually getting it all out to somebody or something that's not going to be judgmental, that's not going to be difficult, that you can take as much time as you need because they're not watching the clock and saying, well, that's it for today. You don't have to deal with that. You can take 6 hours if you need to. 51% reduction in depression, 31% reduction in anxiety, and 19% reduction in eating concerns. Ta-da! That's positive. All right, so let's keep looking. What other studies? Stanford, my alma mater, okay? But they said the chatbots lacked effectiveness. They reinforce stigma often. If you said, am I weird for liking this? Well, yes, you are. Studies show that only 10% of people really do this, and most people who don't do it think you're weird. Okay, so it gave dangerous advice to some people, and especially if you have any type of suicidal ideation, it is crucial that you not use AI as a therapist. You really need to speak to live, trained human beings because they found some ways of people interacting with AI. They actually found that, you know, perennial rah rah, they interpreted it as encouraging them to go through with it. So you have to be very, very careful. Suicidal ideation is not something to work through with AI. The study 3 at Brown, also last year, AI chatbots violated ethical standards. They easily found more than 15 violations of ethical standards with the advice given by AI to people who are using it for therapy. It had poor crisis response. Well, that's no surprise. Again, remember, AI is programmed by people, and they didn't have a bunch of psychologists program that information into the AI. These are just regular people, a lot of geeks, you know. They didn't have that information available. So they wouldn't know that if somebody has this sign, this sign, this sign, you might want to say, okay, let's stop now. Call, the emergency number. Here are some local resources. And if you can't afford it, here's some low cost resources near you. It doesn't do that. It doesn't intervene when it sees danger. It gives false empathy, implying it understands, makes it everything you feel and say to it seem like it's normal and something it needs to encourage. And it often reinforces negative beliefs. This I find very frightening for somebody using therapy because, as I've mentioned before, expertise is layered knowledge. A lot of people, because a lot of experts are being coerced, bribed um, to only present a certain persona, only validate certain behaviors. So we're not getting a lot of honesty or best practice. So a lot of people are starting to say experts, ha ha ha. But expertise is layered knowledge. And when it comes to actually dealing with human beings going through a crisis, AI right now does not have that layered knowledge. Frank asks, if you're in a crisis, I think a human response would be better. Yes, yes. So in a nutshell, so I'm going to talk again about how you can actually effectively use AI to help clarify things in your mind. But in a nutshell, if you're going through a crisis, you need a qualified human being. Don't rely on your computer to help you. Real world cases between 2025 and 2026 link heavy chatbot use, so using it as an emotional outlet, as emotional reinforcement, increases risk of teen suicide. Again, I'm saying that a lot of what it's been programmed, it hasn't been programmed to actually see the dangers. That has to come in the future because but without oversight, are we going to get that? Therein lies the question. Increased loneliness. If the only thing you're having a conversation with is your computer, a computer can't touch you. A computer can't look you in the eye. A computer can't really resonate with you. It's been programmed to be rah rah encouraging in a very false way. And the risk of over reliance on your AI as a therapist rather than dealing with the situations in your life, because remember, it has a tendency to be encouraging even when you're making decisions that are not the best recourse for what your problem is. So encouraging you to go the wrong way, it you risk increasing isolation. And that's also the tolerance, your tolerance for people disagreeing with you, your tolerance for waiting your turn to make a comment, your tolerance for active listening. Because remember, when you're dealing with an AI, it's all about you. You don't have to consider, well, let me stop now and give the AI a chance to really express its views. It does it immediately just based on what you say. So it encourages a type of emotional narcissism that is going to make your loneliness worse. And we do not need more people to be isolated. And you can have lots of superficial friends and still be isolated. If the only person or persona, I should say, who knows the real you is your AI, there's a problem. Okay, let's talk about, I don't want to end negatively, you know I don't. So let's talk about how you can, some healthy uses for AI for personal issues. Use it like a journal. A lot of the depression that they saw depleting, it was because they were able to just have somewhere to get it all out, to express themselves, to not hold it in and let it build up. And sometimes when you write things down and you actually stand back and you look, it gives you some clarity about what's going on that won't happen if you keep it pent up inside. So using AI when you're going through a lot of different situations, I have a close friend whose husband tends to get really anxious and excited easily if things don't go well. He would be perfect to use this because he could write down what was going on, and AI would look at the data on which of those factors should be prioritized first and could actually give him some clarity that would reduce the stress because he'd know what to do next. You can use it that way too. Practice skills and your approach. Let's say you've got a job interview or an interview for a promotion. You can use AI to say, okay, what if I say this? What are the best three things that I should bring up in my interview to increase the probability they'll hire me? AI is going to look at all that job data they've got, all of those HR people that have been programming it, and it'll actually give you some answers. So you can use it and say, okay, now I've got that. Let me practice this. But use it for reflection, not resolution. You don't want to use AI to try to solve your problems for you. You have to solve them yourself. And keep in mind too, AI is only as good as the information you type in. AI is only as good as the information it's been programmed to reflect upon, and that's still limited and that's still biased. So just like I've seen people say, when you do a cover letter from AI, make sure you take out A, B, C, and D because it looks too artificial. Do the same thing when it gives you an answer. If you're like, okay, I have to go. I don't know whether we should go to the in-laws for Christmas and then my parents for New Year's or whatever. Here are the factors that I'm putting in, even just writing it down. If you actually had a journal, you could probably figure it out. But AI could say, 20% of people who do it this way have that answer, 30% have that answer. And then you can reflect, okay, which one fits my life best? Mock interviews. Yes. Practice, practice, practice. You can use your AI for a mock interview. What if I say this? And what if I say that? What are the three things I should bring up? You have my resume. What are the three things I should bring up in this interview that will increase the probability that they will hire me for the job? This is the kind of stuff you use it for. But be very, very careful. If you have try to find a friend you can use for this as well. Remember, AI, friend, family member, the buck still stops with you. You still have the right and the responsibility to decide whether you're going to take advice and what advice you're going to take. Don't surrender your life authority to anything or anyone. You need to be really conscious of that, and also be careful, because a lot of the things that happen with us, one of the reasons as a social psychologist I talk to everyone about everything, is because a lot of the things, our responses to things, are not conscious decisions that we make. They're based on how our brains and our hearts and our bodies process information. If you use AI too much and start giving it personal information about you, there is an increased probability that you're going to get attached to it. And it's not a real person. You need to find a real person, and your AI telling you, yes, you're always right. Well, I'm going to tell you something. That's one of the tactics of abuse that I describe in my work. It's called feeding the weeds. And AI will tend to do that. What is feeding the weeds? What happens is when you're in an abusive relationship, often you'll have an abuser. The abuser wants you to only be attached to them. So when you do things that are ill-advised, mistaken, you act on your weak spots, your vulnerabilities, your faults, unless it directly impacts your accessibility to the abuser, they will encourage that behavior. They will tell you, oh my God, your boss doesn't have a right to ask you to work holidays. You go in and you're like, I'm going to go in, you're just angry. You haven't thought it through. You're not going to do this, but it's like, I'm going to go in and tell my boss I don't have to work these holidays. And your abusive partner will say, you're absolutely right. You've got this. You don't have to work holidays. AI will tell you, it's unfair, workforce HR's rules say you don't have to work holidays. It will just give you advice to encourage a behavior that, even if you don't get fired, will keep you from getting promoted. Will, you know, with real people trying to control you, they'll also say you get angry with one of your siblings, one of your parents. They will feed that, encourage that, flame it up, because they want to ruin your relationship with everyone except them. And the way AI is programmed right now, it could do the same thing. I think that's why we kept seeing, when we looked at the studies, we kept seeing the warnings about frequent use of AI leading to social isolation, increased isolation. Because if you're sharing with AI knowing that all you're going to get is encouragement, and that's tempting sometimes, isn't it? Especially if you're around a lot of people who are criticizing you all the time. But if you start doing that, you're going to get attached to that. And your ability to interact with a real person is going to go down. Your ability to reflect on your faults is going to go down. I've found that when I've been dealing with victim survivors who've been in an abusive relationship where their abuser used that feed the weeds tactic on them, it's not just about adapting to having the abuser no longer be part of their life. They have to work on whatever fault that they had that the abuser fed and increased so that they would be isolated. That's tough to think about, but AI could end up doing the same thing. It could, I should actually do an examination of the studies. And in fact, I'm going to talk to that author. I don't want to say his name yet because, as I said, I haven't read the book. But I want to see how many of the issues that AI has could be compared to the abuse tactics that I've identified in abusive relationships. So you have to be careful. Using it as a journal, using it as mock interviews, using it to say, okay, which qualities are most likely for this type of organization. That's beautiful. That's smart. but use your own mind as well. For serious or complex issues, always, always, always seek assistance from a qualified mental health professional. You cannot afford to get some of this stuff wrong. AI is just one source of information. If it's your only source of information, that in itself is a red flag. So we have to be very careful. I want you all, everybody listening to this, I want you to do the work and start improving and increasing your interpersonal relationships. So, we've done previous shows on how to be more attractive to people in your relationships, what you can do to make people like you more, things like active listening and encouragement, some of the stuff that AI does. But unlike AI, I don't want you to ever be insincere. I don't want you to turn off your values or your ability to judge what's going on, your assessment. Don't turn that off. I know that one thing that helps with getting along with other people is to look for the common bonds that you have. In this politically volatile time, it's one of the ways I've been able to have colleagues, associates, and even friends who are politically different. I constantly look for what qualities do we share? What values do we share? Do not let AI take the place of a person. Hey, Roscoe, how are you? My lovely Roscoe is here. Hi, Roscoe. Welcome to the show. But as I said, though, for a lot of us, and Roscoe, you've talked about this as well, for a lot of us who have been isolated, like I just moved back to the United States, a little bit of culture shock. Okay, I'll admit, bit of culture shock. It's very different. I come back and forth to visit family, to do conferences and things, but it's a whole different thing to actually move here. Because when you go to a conference, you don't go to the grocery store. You don't try to get a phone or open an account. It's very different. Um, and Roscoe said this is the topic I needed. Well, Roscoe, I want you to do something, and everybody watching this, look back over what I said about a way to use AI to just clear your mind, get some basic information. And if you see anything that's still that hurts, that's painful, that's a crisis, I want you to then seek out professional help. You can even use AI to say, where can, I don't have my budget is this, or my budget is low. Where can I get help somewhere near me? Um, um, uh, Frank says he knows more about AI now than he did before. He can guarantee I'm not going to become emotionally attached. I'll stick to the images. Well, again, though, if there's a situation where you need to just get it out, find some basic information, use it like a journal. Say, okay, this is going on. Can you rank which ones are most likely to be serious according to the data that's available on whatever? Use it like that. It can still lessen your anxiety. It can still lower your risk of depression. You can use it as a tool. And I was surprised at this. This is one of my biggest surprises, that you can actually use AI as a tool and it will actually help you in a mental health capacity. If you use it just as a tool, as a temporary tool, or as a superficial tool, as a first step tool, do not use it for serious problems. Um, Roscoe says factually it's often wrong. This is why I said I often will use more than one AI, and they give me different answers, which I find really interesting. So the whole premise of the show isn't about whether AI can talk like us. It's the risk that we have if we begin to relate to AI as though it's human and choose AI instead of humans. If you have a problem like, I'm really shy, what are some things I can do to be less shy? It says, well, studies have found that if you do this, and you try it out and you use it as a tool, but you don't use it to replace human interaction, please don't do that. So if you have a question about this, a comment about this, please do me a favor. Go on my my X feed or below wherever you're watching this and leave the question in the comment. If you are interested in any of my training, keynotes, whatever, you can find out about all of them if you go to ethicalstrategic.com. That's my website. And you can book me through my agent, Danny Pierre. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Roscoe. Thank you, Frank. Um, Again, any questions? If you want to get in contact, if you have a topic you want me to research and help you with, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Remember, I've promised you no more boring Tuesdays. Have a good evening.